Welcome to Charts Today. My name's David Linton, and today's edition for Monday, the 5th of September, comes to you from London. And we haven't been so busy on Charts Today and LinkedIn over the last few weeks, quiet over August, but we've been very, very busy for our clients. And of course, there's been lots of changes in the energy market, but really nothing much has changed from our general long-term view of the markets. And we will talk you through that. In fact, before we look at the markets, just let's look at the main news this morning. European energy prices up over 20% on the back of that Nordstream announcement that came out on Friday night. So we're seeing, of course, a big reaction to energy markets there. But again, a lot of this was in place. We cover all these markets, power and gas markets. Every power and gas market in Europe is covered in our reports. And if we look at the reports, our week ahead report was still bullish on these markets. The fact these are not in bold says that we were bullish last week and the week before and the week before. We're seeing a change on emissions there, and you can find that in the reports. And of course, the European gas and power reports out on Friday, covering all the markets. We were still bullish, even though these markets were pulling back, we were still bullish. And this was before the Nord Stream announcement, of course. So that was there. And if we look to the monthly European report, UK Power, for example, we were talking about UK power prices. We had targets to 384, 423. We were talking about those targets. And that was when the price was back at 310. Of course, that's where we went. You cannot ignore the targets. It's just absolutely critical that you look at the targets. I mean, if you look at gas prices, for example, when Dutch gas was at 239 back in mid-August, only 2 weeks ago, we gave a target of 350. And of course, if we look at the gas price, that's kind of where we went. We touched that 350 and that target was met. And we gave that target way back here, and that's where the prices went. You cannot ignore the price targets. And it's not just, it doesn't stop there, of course. You get these in the daily alerts in your system. So you could be running these on OTC data, on Reuters, on Bloomberg, whatever you're connected to, and you'll get these targets coming through in real time as they happen. So really quite key there that you get the targets on real-time data, as well as, of course, the daily reports and then the weekly and monthly reports. And if we look at our monthly report, this is probably a really good place to start. This was the report that went out on Friday to clients. And so what's changed? We cover 100 different instruments. We give a summary of what changed in August, and these are our calls for the month ahead. And you can look at all the charts here, and the really key thing is that all the charts are given with the trends and targets and the calls in this report every month. So what's changed? We've seen China's currency looking worse against the US dollar, so dollar looking strong there now. Remember, we've been saying all year that 2022 would be the year of the dollar. And if we look at Turkey, bond yields in Turkey now just falling back. I'm just highlighting the changes. Everything else is no change. And we have seen a few changes in some of the soft commodities and some of the grains. But really, the energy mix, we were still bullish on all of these. The high conviction trades, coal, uranium. In fact, I bought 6 uranium stocks last week. Just went through the charts of some uranium stocks and bought 6 stocks on that story because that's going to look really good. And those charts have got great targets. So really, the key thing is you just can't ignore the reports. Remember, we do the weekly reports, the daily reports, our monthly reports, and then special reports like that TTF report for big events. So we're covering these reports every day. And of course, you've got the real-time targets in your system as well. And if you want to get the reports, just ask me for a trial. It's that simple. Take a trial. It's all there. You cannot run away from the reports. They're all there for you to review historically. And of course, as the new ones come out. This is the cycles that we're talking about. Bonds go first. And if we look at that cycle, we see that bonds have come off the top. They're down now over 20%. So the bond market is in a new bear market on that basis. And we see stocks go next. And then commodities are still rising. And we'll see precious metals last in the mix. And so we cover that. And we talk about that in all of the reports there. So really key just to watch those and watch what's going on. So where are we now? Well, the dollar is just surging higher, looking strong there. We've been saying all year of the dollar, new upside target there on the 1% point and figure chart. These log scale charts, of course, unique to Updata. The 60-minute charts, this is my multiple view of the market, long term, medium term, and short term. And we do have the alerts for real time. You have the daily recall for today. You have the weekly call for the week ahead. You have the monthly call for the month ahead. And those longer term reports, of course, are the environment that we're trading in. We've been bearish euro. We've said we gave targets to 97 when the euro was at 111. We gave that a few months ago, and bigger downside targets, and there they are. You just cannot ignore them. So the euro looking weak. Everyone will say, "Oh yes, but that's because of the energy crisis." But we were making these calls well before the Ukraine-Russia war. So really quite key there. And if we look at the Japanese yen, this is a lead indicator on the dollar. We're looking at this 24-year highs there. So that's really significant. Sterling, interesting. We're waiting for the call on a new prime minister today in the UK. But the interesting thing here is that sterling is falling. Downside targets to parity there. So not looking great for sterling. All the other currencies covered. Bitcoin back below 20,000. It's game over for crypto. And if we look at US stocks, we saw on Friday we're down another 1%. We're seeing a bear market in US stocks. We've got downside targets there, all covered in the report. And we give those downside targets, of course. And much the same. We're seeing the DAX down 2.3% this morning. No big surprises there. Really just falling lower on the future there and on the cash. We saw Asia actually looking a little bit better. But on the whole, we're going to see the US kick in. We'll look at the energy mix in a minute. But if we look at gold, we're sitting here at 1713. Just gold cannot get going. Really stuck in this range. If we look at that range, it's there. It's sitting between 1675 and 2070. That's the range. We need to break out of that range. This long consolidation pattern. If we break higher, that's going to be explosive for gold. And of course, we've still got big upside targets there. Looking at some of the other mix, so we've got silver not looking as good as gold, falling away there. And that's really quite key. And if we look at some of the other things, we cover, of course, all the metals in our monthly report. Copper just starting to have found a floor there. US 10-year yields are up. We're sitting at 3.2%. The bond market is collapsing. We've already talked about that for a long time. Seeing really big risks there in Italian bonds. So really quite key. And again, we cover those in the reports with all the targets. Tech stocks, we cover all those as well. The worst of the bad bunch is Meta. But we're seeing here Apple. If we move back below that level on Apple, that 130 level, that will be disastrous. And note we're making a lower high. So we are seeing this unfolding. Downside targets there as well. Taking a look at the energy mix now, we've got Brent crude. It's up 2.7% this morning. We are in a medium-term downtrend. This is the daily chart and the 60-minute chart. So we are in a downtrend, but we do have these upside targets on the 1-minute chart. So we'll see a little counter trend move there. The long-term trend on the weekly is still just holding, but if we fall below 90, we're in a new downtrend for crude. Looking at US nat gas, this is the one that's looking very explosive. We put out a special report with all the targets, and you're not going to believe how high US gas could go. It's really very explosive, those targets. And there again in our US gas report, which you'll just find again in all the reports. So you can just go down, scroll until you find that report, or it'd be in the special report. So special reports, energy, how high oil price, will Europe run out of gas? All of these things are covered there. So take a look at the reports. Now, looking at the energy mix, we're talking about oil, of course. Coal looking very strong indeed. And if we look at that breaking higher, looking at gas prices. Oh, by the way, emissions, we talked about that turning bearish, really breaking lower there. And downside targets on the 1-minute chart. So we cannot ignore those for today. So that's really quite key. So looking at emissions, we see here breaking lower. We've got lots of downside targets there on emissions. Quite interesting was just seeing some new targets coming in for crude oil there. Downside targets, that's where we're going. Look at that downtrend, and we've been giving those downside targets for the last few days, which is why our stance on emissions has been bearish. Of course, the big news is what's happening to gas prices. We're seeing TTF pushing higher, just hitting the cloud resistance there. So really, it'd be very interesting now. We've got this, really what it counts as is this level. Above 342 is bearish, below 302, sorry, above 342 is bullish, below 203 is bearish. So that's what we've got to watch. Your NBP, much the same position there. Looking at German power, similarly, had this massive spike up. We found this support at 500. That's the key level to watch for German power. That's it for today. Until tomorrow, keep an eye on those reports. If you want to see them, take a trial. Until tomorrow, happy charting. See you then.